what's up, everybody? Thanks for coming. It is Sunday, so I'm the Kentucky Atheist. This is the Grateful to Know God's broadcast. Not so much getting into the atheist thing today. The name may be a little misleading today, but a friend of the channel and a friend of the community, a lot of us know, is with me today. Nick Soutter from the channel In Time. And PC's already linked you in the chat, and I've got you linked in a couple places also. But how you doing today, Nick?
Doing good, thank you. How about yourself?
All right, surviving. Surviving, given the situation.
Oh God, yeah.
We talked the other day on Skeptic Spin over on Yahoo and Justin's channel, and so you know a little bit about we each know a little bit about dealing and processing some of recent events and things. But you do the channel In Time. Where to start? So why don't you just tell me a little bit about what your idea is behind the channel first?
In Time is okay. In my view, education is the silver bullet. It's the answer to all of our problems, period, end of discussion. Science ostensibly really came into its own about 400 years ago. Okay, 400 years ago. We have accomplished more in that 400 years than we did in the 100,000 years that our species existed before that. When we talk about increasing life expectancy, quality of life, air conditioning, electricity, we put a man on the moon, for crying out loud. Oh, dear Lord.
We both knew it was coming.
Yeah, it didn't take long for that to start. We put a man on the, and that's the last 400 years. So we've got problems. We've got climate change. We've got limited resources. We've got all these problems, and there's only one answer to them that I can think of, and that is education. That is learning more, and that's part of the social fabric. I mean, I think the reason you find in cities that more people are more liberal is because they're educated, because they're encountering more people educated in terms of just by if and you and I were talking about this earlier, if you grew up and your only contact was religious white people growing up, you're going to have a very different perspective than if you grew up in the center of New York. And so In Time is an educational program. We do interviews, we do breaking news. We try to also dissect what you see in the mainstream media and say, okay, here's where it's accurate. Here's where maybe you're not being told all the information that you need to know. And people are trying to sort of manipulate your perspectives on things. And we break down all media that we can find and try to give our viewers the tools to both critically assess any news and information, including our own. And we make mistakes and we sit there and say, oh, we got this wrong. Now let's figure out how and why we got this wrong. Let's talk about how to fix that. And also we try to give them as much information as possible. So we get one of my favorite guests was the number 2 guy, former number 2 guy at NATO, Lieutenant General Benjamin Hodges. He was the head of all NATO ground forces worldwide. And, we have him on, we get to talk about NATO, his views on the war in Ukraine. We get on people to discuss, we have just recently had on a former member of the Israeli Defense Force talking about what it's really like to go into Gaza and what, in his views, the real objectives are of the Israelis. And he's in the Israeli Defense Force, so he's been on the ground there. He's been ordered to shoot at people who weren't armed or shooting at him. So these are the discussions we try to have on In Time.
Yeah. I watched several of your videos talking about Ukraine and Israel and stuff. Those are topics that, even though my channel is kind of like atheist activism, I still talk about a lot of those other issues because I feel, I do talk a lot about atheism and some of the claims made by Christians and apologists and stuff like that. But really, I focus more on the community, and those are the things that the community is is interested in and stuff. So I don't care to voyage outside of that and talk about whatever. But I do love that you hold education on that pedestal, because I think of anything that could really save us from where we're at now is education. And one of the things, like when I do giveaways and stuff to my audience, I give away books. I think that giving people the material, the resources, and providing good education is most important. And like you said, like you try to be careful with your sources and make sure you're giving good information. Sometimes you have to go back and say, hey, got this wrong. But
Yeah.
I get people in the audience, especially live streaming with a community that comes and watches and supports what I do and stuff. I'll get people say something in the chat and I'll see it and I'll make note of it. I'll be like, okay, I need to look at that. And so the audience really holds me accountable, which is awesome, because I learn things that way, like I've had people message me. I have to say, sorry, I wasn't trying to tell you this and that. And I'm like, no, please. Like, if you hear me say something that's wrong, let me know. But yeah, I think, you have some really great guests too. I mean, like your channel, you have a lot of great people come on and talk that are, right there in it and know what they're talking about. And it's awesome.
We try also too. I'm an atheist. I still am an anti-theist, and I've done anti-theist work. I did the obligatory debate with Kent Hovind, all sorts of other things. But when we had on Seth Andrews, we had him on twice. Once was to discuss his deconversion, because I'm sitting there going, I'm not going to have Seth Andrews on and not discuss his deconversion. But the other one was to discuss how to make the conversation better, how atheists and theists can talk together. And we've had people do their deconversion stories, but we've also had people do their conversion stories. If you're a minister, and not one of the, I have no interest in listening to a truly bigoted. We can have somebody like that on if we're prepared, and it's a different kind of show. But if you're a minister that is or not even if you're a theist who's open-minded and wants to come on and tell us what it was that got you to believe in God, we'd love to hear it. And we're not going to challenge you. We're not going to. We'll just hear it for the sake of hearing their side of the story. So that's what we do.
Yeah, the thing I always say is that I'm interested in having honest conversations with anybody that'll come and do it. And I think that most of the people in the chat right now know me, have talked to me enough to or at least to talk to me enough to know a little bit about what I'm about and stuff. So if I think that there's something that they'll find interesting or may benefit even in some small way, I love to put those people on. I did learn a little lesson here recently about having theists on though. I've always said that, like, the thing with theists, when you don't really know them and you're not really familiar with their content, is you don't know what they're going to say. I mean, they'll be going down the line, the same old, like, I believe, Jesus, blah, 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 all that stuff. And then all of a sudden it jumps the tracks to Crazy Town and we're, or some crazy bigoted stuff comes out of their mouth. And I'm like, oh man, don't do that. Like, can't we just talk about things without all that? Like,
I thought you said you were Christian. I am Christian. I'm from the Westboro Baptist Church. Whoa, okay, it's a different kind of Christian there.
They came to my hometown. They did.
Oh dear Lord.
I graduated high school in 2001, and my school started a club called the Gay Straight Alliance, which is in a number of places. And there was you have to excuse me, I just got over the flu. I was sick as hell the other night when we did that show, but
yeah, you I could kind of tell you were definitely you were But you were a trooper. You stayed through the whole show. So
Yeah. I actually did a show right before that, and I started feeling bad towards the end of that show, and then whenever on Justin's show, like halfway through, I felt horrible. But anyway, they started this club, the Gay Straight Alliance, and people got all worked up about it, and it ended up being they did a spot on national news about it. Jay Leno said something about my particular high school on his late night show, and the Westboro Baptist Church ended up coming to my hometown to protest about it, and it was gross. That's what it was. Not a yeah, there's a lot of things in Eastern Kentucky. Like I'm not proud of my fellow Kentuckians for a lot of things, but that was a low point, I have to say. But yeah, so I like to talk to theists, I guess, but like when I first started doing this, I wanted to debate and argue with them and stuff. And had I started about a year earlier, I would have done the obligatory Kent Hovind debate. But so much stuff happened with him after that I'm like, nah, not necessary.
yeah.
And I've been asked to a number of times, and I flip flop on it a few times, but I always end up after I sit down and think about it, I'm like, nah, it's not going to help me none. I don't need to talk to Kent. If I want to argue with Kent, I'll turn on his seminar because he says the same shit that he's been saying for 30 years. But yeah, I got into once I started streaming and stuff though, it really just changed my perspective when I started interacting with the community and making friends and stuff. I was like, you know what? Like if I'm an atheist activist, I would rather be an activist for the community that makes up this online atheist community. Like not and as far as anti-theism, like I do embrace that somewhat. I guess it depends on how we're talking about it. Because in some cases, I would tell you I'm an atheist. In some conversations, I'm an agnostic atheist. And in others, I'm an anti-theist. So it just depends on.
Dawkins said the same thing, and people gave him shit for him. They're like, you say you're agnostic sometimes, and then other times you say you're atheist. Well, which are you? And it's just like it depends on the context, because to some people, and by the way, not for nothing, but it's been my experience that 90% of Christians think that 90% of other Christians aren't actual Christians. I mean, even Catholics, most Catholics think that the other Catholics next to them aren't Catholic because they're not doing the proper mass at the proper time or the this or that. So it's like you can find Christians will sit there and say, oh, he's not a true Christian. He's not a true. So it's like who or what label you use is going to change depending on the context. And if you're trying to improve communication, you adapt. I was in a debate where they said, okay, you're an atheist. I said, define atheism. I defined it. He said, well, I'd put that then as agnostic. I said, okay, fine, I'm agnostic. Like, wait, what? I said, fine. If that's what you want to call me and that's how you define it, we'll use your definition. That's fine. As long as we don't change definitions halfway through, I'm cool. Let's use yours. And it completely threw him off because he wanted to get into a fight over the labels. And
a certain non sequitur fella gave me some grief about labels and stuff, and I said, hey, like, whatever, call it what you want. I don't believe a God exists. There's this claim. I'm not convinced it's true. And furthermore, I think once we get into the specifics, I think I can maybe not completely demonstrate, but I can make a case beyond a reasonable doubt that the Christian God is horseshit. Like, and that's kind of how that's why I kind of fall in all those places, because it depends on what we're talking about, really. Like, I think if I'm being precise, I'm an agnostic atheist. I'm not convinced that God is true, and from the claims that I've heard of God, I'm not even sure how you would assess that question.
It's any God claim that's like sort of on the deistic side is unfalsifiable.
Right.
So that makes it very difficult to sit there and say, I can prove or know with certainty. Knowing with certain, as soon as you start to talk about knowing with certainty, you've got an epistemological problem. So it's to beat people over the head with an a fundamental epistemological problem on that level of certainty. I love how you said it, and I think how you said it's the best way to do it is to beyond a reasonable doubt, because there can be doubt in anything, and that is so universally recognized that when this country was founded, they actually said you don't have to know to a certainty, because they knew 200 years ago that you couldn't really. Certainty is a huge fucking word.
Yeah. I think I think that's the easiest. And I've had to sit and think about this, and like you said, you get people that are picky about labels and things, especially some of the apologists that like to pretend they're philosophers. They like to get into labels and things and try to flip what the words mean. Darth Dawkins comes to mind. Likes to say, well, you're an atheist, you believe that no God exists. And it's like, okay, maybe, but that's not really the way that I would word it. I would just say I'm not convinced that claim's true. Like that. I think that helps me to. I think that's the easiest way for me to answer that question. And part of that is kind of borrowed from Matt Dillahunty a little bit, which, I mean, if you're gonna
borrow from anybody. Let me make a suggestion, which is I love labels. I think labels are great. But you have to remember what a label is there to do. A label is there to describe, not proscribe. So, you and I can use labels with each other to have shorthand so that when I say I'm an atheist, you don't know exactly what I mean, but you know really within the ballpark where I am, where I stand, and you and I can communicate. And that label has just made it so much easier than me having to actually go through. It's when you then say, well, wait a minute, you've given me this label of atheism, so I will proscribe to you specific things that I think you have to do or adhere to, or that this means, without asking me. And you start telling me what I think, and you start telling me who I am based on those labels. No, that's a serious problem. Labels are important. They're good. They're a part of language. Even colors are actually really just a form of label. It's like, oh, this is red, this is blue. And you can get into argument, is that eggshell cream, or is that white, or is that almond, or is that, but it's, again, when it's descriptive, labels are great. When it's proscriptive, labels are weapons, really.
Yeah, for sure. I think we see that in a lot of areas. I don't mind going through the labels and stuff, but like you said, when people start trying to tell you, like, they tell me other things that I believe and think because I'm an atheist, and I'm like, no, that the atheist community agrees on one thing, like
exactly.
Outside of that, I can say anything like that I feel passionate about on here, and there's going to be at least one person in the chat that disagrees with me. And that's cool. Like, I think that we can disagree on things without hating each other, which unfortunately is kind of a thing that's been happening a lot. But yeah, I think that whenever you're trying to describe something, those labels are very helpful. But whenever people are being prescriptive with it, like you said, it just ends up getting nasty. You're trying to tell somebody else who they are, and that never goes well. But all right. So whenever we talked the other night, we talked a lot about politics and about what was happening since Trump was elected and stuff. And it was just, what were we, 3 days out from the election at the time? 4 days. Yeah. And I think that it was me and you and Maya and JL and of course Justin. And I I was listening to you talk about things, and I've had JL on a couple times, and I love JL. He's a great guest, and you can have JL on and just sit back and he'll do it. Uh, he just goes. But the I was listening to you talk about stuff and things, and I was like, hey, I think, and I'd watched a couple of your videos and stuff before, and I'm on your Discord. And I see some of the things you post and all that, so I'm a little bit familiar with you. But I was listening to you talk, and I was like, hey, he's really, I like the amount of thought and stuff he's put into these things, and seems to be well spoken and intelligent. Well, I'd love to sit down and have a talk with this guy. And in fact, we disagreed on a couple things, but
Titan, we fooled another one.
Yeah.
It's basically Titan's. We say Titan's my head mod. Really, he's in charge of PR. He goes around and convinces people that I know what I'm talking. I got no fucking idea. I just make this shit.
Yeah, well, that's how I found you.
Yeah. That does not surprise me the slightest.
Yeah. That's we've known about each other for a minute because of Titan. Whenever I first started, there was some stuff going on, and I was talking to Titan, and then Titan said, "Hey, why don't you let me introduce you to some other people in the community that you may not know and stuff, and or at least show you these channels and things. You can find people to talk to that are not assholes, And so thank you, Titan. But yeah, I think Titan's everybody's head mod, isn't he?
No, when you get a YouTube channel, it actually starts with one mod. He's already wrenched, and if you try to de-wrench him, it just puts him right the fuck back on. I haven't figured out how to get around that yet. I've been trying for 4 years. Mod. Yeah, it's.
Yeah. I wasn't really active in the atheist community as far as like the chat and stuff before I started a channel. I had watched and consumed a lot of content, debates and different views on things, things from the line, the atheist experience, Hitchens, all that stuff, the normal stuff.
Yep.
But it wasn't until I started streaming that I started getting to know people and stuff, and just found this amazing, awesome community there that I was like, just wow, I can't believe that I've sat here in Kentucky isolated, don't even know another atheist in my town other than my girlfriend that lives with me. And now I have a group of people I can talk to and bounce things off of and interact with and stuff. And it's been really great. And there's been ups and downs to that, of course, and controversy here and there, of course, because
on the YouTubes, no.
Well, when you have this accent, sometimes
yeah, I'll bet.
So sometimes people are waiting for you to say something, but no, it's actually not been me that's been the problem with it, really. But I tell you, it was one of the things that I've had to practice at, and that I've gotten better at, is hearing the things that people aren't saying, the dog whistles and such.
Yeah.
And that's been a real thing within the atheist community itself. Even I know politically we have a lot of that, but there's again, the atheist community only agrees on one thing, really. So I get people are going to have different viewpoints and stuff, but recognizing whenever people were trying to go out of their way to be hurtful and harmful and just ugly to other people has been something that I didn't expect, and that I've had to learn to catch certain things, and I've had to learn to go research people before I have them on the channel. I did a live. Do you know who Thomas Sneedy is? Tom Sheedy. You know who that is?
Sounds familiar, but not coming to mind right now.
He's the president of Atheists for Liberty.
Right.
And they're, a hate group that tries to recruit atheists to a Christian nationalist form of atheism. And if that makes sense,
sure. Why not?
Paul, but
okay.
One of my early live streams, though, I posted a link for anybody to come in, and he comes in and introduces himself, and I have no idea who it is and stuff, but he had posted it on his Twitter page. I should have known when he said Twitter that something was up. But
yeah, that's become a dog whistle in and of itself. As soon as somebody says Twitter, you have to be. It's like, okay, something's up.
But he came on and brought like 100 viewers with him, well over 100 actually. So here, my live streams are having like 10, 12 viewers at most at the time, and 100 and some people show up out of nowhere. And I was like, whoa. So not really. Of course, I hadn't researched him and I didn't know. But he's like, hey, here's my email and all this stuff. I'm posting it in the chat for people. He's misrepresenting who he is and what he stands for the whole time. Which he did end up getting put on the spot on it. And we worked together to do that. Bree and Stephanie and Ember doing most of that work. Maya being angry at me for a while. But we talked and we tried to kind of root out a little bit whenever he was on, but there were some people that once they found out, or some that knew, but others that found out what he was about and stuff were like, hey, maybe not a good look, promoting that dude. And so I had to learn that lesson, like check people out first. Not everybody's as friendly as they seem. He had a lot of awful stuff on his YouTube, and I mean, as you can imagine, Atheist for Liberty is probably not, probably doesn't agree with most of the atheist community.
As you said, we're not a monolith outside of that view. There are some, in my experience, generalizations, but again, they're wild generalizations. There's a lot of exceptions, but usually atheists do tend to value education more. I think that's in part because the more you get educated, the more you start to question things like religion. So you're going to have a relationship there between education, but it's not. You can meet plenty of uneducated atheists and people who were never. There are plenty of people who've had no education. So it's not a rule, but and I find myself making those assumptions and then getting knocked on my ass when I was like, okay, remember, it's just you have one thing in common with other atheists. That's it.
Yeah, it's easy. It's funny though, because I'll get with a group of atheists and be talking, especially like a member stream or something, when I'm a little more open with things. Get to talking and somebody will say something or they'll catch me on something and be like, I don't agree with that. And I'm like, well, you don't have to, like that's okay. If you want to talk about it, we can talk about it. But the valuing education thing though, it does seem to be a staple, at least in this section of the atheist community that I'm aware of. And I understand why. I mean, for the ones of us, and I'm not saying it excludes the others, but for the atheists that used to be theists at some time and have deconverted and stuff, I mean, you look for answers, right? I mean, you start, how do these things really work? You get curious and want to know. And I think you have to have that curiosity in order to want to go through that process. You have to have some sort of I'm saying you have to, you don't. More often than not.
I think that's a better way to put it. I would. Yeah, I think that's a better way to put it. So, and I mean, it's worth noting. I mean, there are now, if I recall, it's about it's over 90% of all Nobel Prize laureates are theists of some kind. But one of the, so that would seem to contradict what we're talking about. Having said that, if they check theist on the box, that you know how many people check Jewish and don't really identify that, they may identify it more in a cultural sense, or something other than that, but they're not like a practicing. So it's like, what does that really mean? And given the prominence of religion, especially in the United States, especially, well, it's more prominent in Europe, but it's taken less seriously in Europe, which is a little weird. In the US, it's like, and the Europeans go, wait a minute, there are people in the US that think the Earth is only 6,000 years old. It's like, yeah, like, wow. Even like in Rome, you go to Rome, you go to Italy, like Jesus is everywhere. They are really big on Jesus there, and it's like, oh, you're an American. You're one of those really weird, crazy religious psychos. It's like, oh dear Lord.
Yeah. First of all, Amber, thank you for rejoining as a member. I know that you've been a member for a while. We tend to. I think I've been a member over on the Amber's channel too for almost a year. But thank you, and anybody that's interested in joining, memberships start at 99 cents. Click the button down there if you want to join. I actually do member streams like every week, sometimes more than once, but I try to even, give me $1 and you'll get all kinds of extra content. I think I always feel like I need to do as much as possible for people who support the channel in any way like that. And I love having the members area where I can talk about things that maybe I can't get into during a regular video. But yeah, man, I think that I like the attention to detail and the stuff that you do on your channel over there at End Time, and again, it's linked in the chat, and I think it's in the description as well. But I love what you're doing, and you have you don't just, I mean, I do a lot of stuff where it's two of us talking about something that we're not really involved in, we're observing or whatever, and you have a lot of guests that are in it, that are in Israel, that are in Ukraine, that are experiencing these things, and it's just really powerful. It's really powerful stuff, and it's done well, and I appreciate you putting it out there for everybody. The information. It's a great channel.
Thank you.
Now, we're not going to spend a lot of time on this, but let's briefly talk about this politics thing for a second. So, Trump did end up appointing RFK.
He did, and I was sitting there thinking about that, and I was like, and I remember when I said it, I was like, I'm taking an awfully strong stance on this, and there really is at least a 50-50 he's going to do it. And I said, you know what? I think it was as much wish thinking as anything else, but that was absolutely the wrong call. He appointed him, and there really should have been no doubt that it was at least a distinct possibility. So
yeah.
I prognosticated that one with far more assurance than I should have. But anyways, please, yes. RFK now, Health and Human Services, dear Lord.
I know. And the thing I said at the time was that, we went down this road in the election, for whatever reason, there's any number of reasons that Democrats didn't win or that Trump did win. And I pointed to a lot of the hate and stuff. And I think that that's one of many things. I don't think that's the only reason people voted for Trump. But I feel like one of the things that got us down that road is Trump says these crazy things, and people are like, he's not going to do that crazy thing. Like he's saying that, and he'll do something adjacent, something equally as crazy, but he's not going to do that thing. And then he does that thing, and it seems to be. I was blown away that he won the election. Honestly, I was just, I do I did a political show every week with Robin. And hi, Robin, I seen you out there. But I was thinking it was going to be a landslide in the other direction, and yeah, and I was just blown away by it. And we were talking about the cabinet picks, and since then it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. And Matt Gaetz as Attorney General.
Oh, Jesus.
Like how do you like it? It's almost like Trump's trolling us and just like, I'm going to pick the worst possible people for these positions, because I can't think of any because you're going to pick like somebody that's in the party and prevalent and stuff. Like, I can't think of anybody that'd be a worse pick than Matt Gaetz.
And somebody who's spent a lifetime either prosecuting or doing, actually involved in the law. I mean, it's nice that he picked someone that's actually at least done government work, but you'd think, and Gaetz has done a lot of legal work, but he's done it as the criminal. He's done it on the wrong fucking side of the law, and it's been some pretty bad stuff that I'm not going to get into, because the last thing you need is to get demonetized, because it's that fucking bad.
Yeah.
And it's not really I try not to say somebody's done these terrible things unless they're convicted of it and or yada, yada, yada. The problem is, the ethics committee, we already know the House Judiciary has a report, and we already know from leaks from that report that it's really bad. And we know because multiple senators said he's been showing us pictures of him doing these things on the floor of the House. So, or the floor of the Senate. So there's enough evidence there for me to feel like you can credibly claim that he's a really, really bad person.
Yeah.
And should not be heading up any organization, let alone the Justice Department. I mean, that's literally the worst one. I mean, he wouldn't do well at the Fisheries Department, but if you're going to put him anywhere, at least put him there and keep him out of the way. But
yeah, the just bringing that up got some wonderful comments from the audience. Aunt Jer said, why is Nick holding a pen? Does he think it makes him look like a real journalist? giving you a little back there.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah. Titan says that because he is trolling. Yeah, I mean, it really feels that way. I love this comment. PC, when we said bring Gaetz to justice, we didn't mean make him AG.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
Yeah,
that's a really good
one. He picked a loyalist. Someone will go after people it tells. Yeah, that's. I mean, that's. Exactly. I think that's the main driving factor. There is people that either owe him or he's doing them such a solid that, Matt Gaetz had those. He saved Matt Gaetz essentially from the ethics committee report that was going to come out, and so Matt Gaetz owes him now, not just for the position, but for saving his career. And when it comes to Trump, that's kind of dangerous because, I think some of this too is testing the Senate and Republicans to see how far they're going to let him go. I think that.
Yep.
Yeah, I feel like that he's testing the water right now to see what he can get away with, because honestly, as bad as all these picks are, he'll probably fire them in the first year anyway. I mean,
or they'll get something will happen to them that will get them in trouble, and then he's just going to hang them out to dry. I mean, I don't think he really cares about any of them. What he wants to do is he wants to test the resolve of the Senate, whether this is a litmus test to see whether the Senate will allow him to appoint them as a recess appointment, which is no longer supposed to be possible because they blocked recess appointments to keep Obama from getting Merrick Garland on the bench. So the Senate has said no more recess appointments, and now Trump wants to do a recess appointment. So is the Senate going to let him actually wants to do all of these as recess appointments, all of them. So none of them get confirmed by the Senate. And there are members of the Senate that are legit concerned about this. So this is, and Lance McMillan, Commander Lance McMillan said that this is essentially the night of the long knives. He wants to know who's loyal and who's not. And the way he's going to tell that is by having people that really should never be appointed. And he's going to say, I'm telling you, these are my picks. And he's going to watch which senators say, okay, it's all yours. You're in charge, and which ones don't. That's one of the big things he's doing.
The senator coming out and saying if Trump says jump 3 feet and scratch our head, we're going to do that. The one that came out and said that was very telling, because I think that you're exactly right, and that's why he said that, because they know that right now it's to find out who's loyal and who's gonna back him even on the most controversial things, and I think that the Senate's well aware of that too. That's why that guy said that. By the way, hi Unshaw Podcast. I seen you there.
I'm going to interrupt for 1 minute. I do apologize.
No, go for it.
So one of the things we do on In Time is breaking news, and we have a Discord where we monitor it. We do have breaking news. In Time will be going live after this show. It was something we've been hoping for and talking about. Biden has now authorized Ukraine to use the long-range American weapons to strike deep inside Russia. That's been withheld ostensibly to prevent World War III. It's a nuanced thing, but Biden has now authorized the release, meaning that Ukraine can strike inside Moscow with U.S. weapons, which they have not been permitted to do till now. So that's big enough. We'll be going live as soon as we're done with this show. But you've been such a nice guy. I'm like, I'm not going to just sit there and go, I do that, though, sometimes. Sometimes it's like, what? Somebody just took a shot at the president? I think I got to go. But it's amazing. You know what I found? We get more of our breaking news while I'm a guest on somebody else's show than any other time. But
you're going to have to stop visiting shows because all the news is bad these days.
Well, I got to visit. I got to visit more shows because we don't have enough breaking to. It's like the breaking has been so slow. It's like I got to go visit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the 24-hour news cycles and the sensationalism has made it seem like there needs to be breaking news all the time, and
that's a good point.
In reality, sometimes there just isn't. But yeah, and we won't go too much longer. This whole thing, I like to get people on and talk to them who they are really, not real technical into things. That way, just me and you and the community sit and have a talk about stuff. So nothing important going on here that you can't jump out. But I'll get you out of here in a few minutes.
Let's go. Okay. I was figuring an hour, so
Yeah.
If we got 15 minutes left, if that works for you, that works for me. And I sent some instructions in the back to get some people moving on it, and we'll things are happening. In Time we'll be going live probably about 10 minutes after.
I was kind of hoping Biden would do that as soon as possible because I mean we know there's going to be a big change in January. McMillan that you mentioned, I don't remember the rank, but is a guest on your show talking about a lot of that stuff, and just an excellent source of information. I mean, really great contributor over there. Go check it out over on In Time.
He was a former commander in the Navy, and his specialty was logistics, and he was the chief logistics operator for the Iraq War, staging the Iraq War in Kuwait for the Fifth Fleet out of CENTCOM. So he's done a lot of big stuff. With Trump, I mean, there's a couple things that really scare me about Trump. And I don't think we say this on In Time all the time. So I remember there was a while back, there was a battle over Kashmir. There's always been battles over Kashmir, but India and Pakistan were going at it. And Pakistan decided, for whatever reason, to release authority to deploy tactical nuclear weapons to the field. So they said, okay, we're not going to have the president decide whether we're going to use tactical nuclear weapons. It's the generals who are going to decide it in the field as they're engaging India. And the problem is we were allied with India, Russia was allied with Pakistan, and it's sort of like this is the perfect nightmare scenario for World War III. And everybody was freaking out. And the first thing that I said was, and we didn't have a show, but I was teaching high school at the time, so there were high school students who were freaking out. One of the things that I said was, okay, well, first of all, just because they said that they've done that doesn't mean they've actually done that. I mean, there's if I were president of a country, I would not give authority to release nuclear weapons to anybody else but me. I have never heard of somebody who's got the nuclear code saying, here, why don't you decide? It's like, so I doubt that's actually happened. I think they're doing that as rhetoric to try to intimidate the other side to come to the negotiating table. But having said that, we've seen World War III trending a lot. And we've seen it trending like 2 or 3 times a year. It starts trending when something really scary starts happening. And one of the things that I say on the show all the time is, here's the thing. Yep, every world war started this way. What you're seeing right now, this is what starts world wars. They've all started this way. Having said that, this kind of thing actually happens all the damn time and has only resulted in a world war twice.
Yeah.
All the time. We have insane people put into positions of just massive power, and we've gotten through it. The number of people who genuinely want a world war is much higher than I'm comfortable with, but it's lower than it looks like. And the amount of people and the amount of interest, both even corporations don't want a world war. Why? Because they're going to get wiped out. So think about the biggest influences in China had an opportunity to wipe out the U.S. in 2007, 2008. All they had to do was call in their debt. We had an economic crisis. The U.S. would have had an economic collapse. Why didn't they do it? Well, because they wouldn't get any of their money back. So the reason they didn't go to war with us was because there was too much financial incentive not to. The world is so interconnected. Most people don't actually, they don't mind small regional wars, especially if we can sell them weapons. But the idea of a world war that could kill like people like Elon Musk could have a hard time avoiding a world war with nuclear weapons involved. He could get killed because if somebody drops a nuclear weapon anywhere near him, he's gone. It doesn't matter that he's the greatest guy on the world or whatever the hell he thinks he is. So the powers that be, yeah, until you get to, and that's why Christian Zionism is so scary to me, because that is the exception to everything I've just said. But barring that, most people do not want a world war and will work very hard to work against it, even people who have beliefs diametrically opposed to you. So, but having said all that, one of the things that I say, the reason Hitler got elected was because everybody thought he's the kind of guy you'd want to have a beer with, and he understands the common man, and that was the thinking. And they also thought he was too stupid to get one over on anybody, so they said, you know, I trust him more because I don't think he's smart enough to really be like diabolical or anything like that. So you take a look at all of the things that people say about how and why they voted for Trump, and you have to remind people that Hitler was democratically elected, and had written a book saying, this is what I think we should do. And people looked at that book and said, no, he doesn't really, no, there's no way. There's no way he really believes these things. And then he gets into office, and guess what? He does believe those things, and he starts doing them. And he does it slowly. You know, they didn't start with gas chambers. You know, they started with laws saying they could, Jews could or could not go into certain areas, and controlling how they could spend money, and then just it grew from there. He didn't just say, "Oh, we're building gas chambers, let's start with that." Nobody would have let him get away with it if he did. He did it incrementally. It's the what is it, boiling frog thing. Yeah. So anyway, so I make these comparisons to how fascists get into power, and I think it's justifiable to call Trump a fascist.
Oh, sure.
And people, you know, get worried. Are we looking at World War III? Yes, this is how world wars start. but this kind of thing does happen so often that you shouldn't panic every time it happens, because we've only had 2 world wars. For a lot of times one could have started.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm just a dude from Kentucky, but I've put some thought into this, and the thing that I see happening that I think is scary and is very similar to the historical events of Germany is that what Trump did and what the Republicans have done is they've scapegoated certain groups of people. They have a country who, even though the numbers don't necessarily match with their beliefs, they think that the economy is in such bad state and that everything is so bad. And Trump and the Republicans have scapegoated certain groups of people in order to give someone to be mad at. And that's exactly what Hitler did, threatening deportations and that kind of thing. That's why his comments about the blood of the country and stuff are so frightening, because he's following in those footsteps. And
just FYI, people think of Hitler as the world's greatest. He's committed. No, he's the one we think about the most because we fought him. But what most people don't realize, he's, I think, the 4th greatest committer of genocide in world history. The highest would be, I think, Stalin, who did the same thing. Stalin did the same thing, and they all do this, which is find a group to scapegoat. But the group that he scapegoated were the people who were producing the food, and it turned out that the people he replaced them with didn't know how to farm, and so all of a sudden you've got a famine and 30 million people starved to death. Then there's Chairman Mao, who said, okay, it's all the elites. We have to get rid of all the elites. They're the cause of the problem. We'll have a cultural revolution. We'll solve all our problems. This was, by the way, both of those were on the left. So authoritarianism doesn't have to just come from the right. We've had some pretty crazy people on the left too, but did the same thing. And it's a spectacular playbook to mobilize large numbers of people, which is find where they most feel disenfranchised. Find where they most feel, I am not being heard, I am not having justice for myself, and tell them, I can get you justice because it's this person who's taking it away from you. And that's very scary rhetoric and very effective, unfortunately.
And whenever we talked the other night, I said, I think it's because of the hate and the dog whistles to white supremacists and those things. But that's kind of the more refined after thinking about those comments and stuff. I feel like that's exactly that's a powerful thing that he used against us. And those appeals to emotion are common in these things. But whenever you start appealing to anger and hate and things like that and get the fanatics stirred up, it's a scary thing and doesn't work out well for anybody historically. I hope that there are a lot of people now that are unhappy with their choice, and I mean, we're gonna have to live with it now, of course. But I hope that that's all I got too. Is I hope that people can stand up to some of this hate and stuff, and not let it continue to grow like it has. I hope this opened a lot of people's eyes. If anything good comes of it, I hope a lot of people open their eyes to what's really going on. But
I have a tendency to try to find the most inflammatory way to say things. So one of them was like why I love sweatshops. And by the time I'm done in my essay on sweatshops, most people I have come to the conclusion like, okay, I see what you're saying and you're right. But I have one, why I love hatred. I love hatred. I love hatred. So do you. So do most of the people here. Hatred is cathartic. Hatred is self-aggrandizing. I have to believe that if you're a member of the KKK, it feels good because the belief inherently elevates you. I'm better than everybody else. And that hatred gives you like endorphins. That's why
Yeah.
it's so powerful. That's why it works. It's a drug. It's a fucking drug. So
yeah, it is. I have
yeah,
experience with that, and
yeah,
I can tell you, it's much the same thing. It tickles the
yeah.
same receptors, you know.
Yes, yes. Hatred is fun. That was the name of it. Not I love hatred. Hatred is fun. Hatred is fun. Hatred is self-aggrandizing. It's fun. The funny thing is, once you start to think about it, whatever it is you hate has to actually be equal to you, because you can't hate things below you. If something is beneath you and it somehow inspires your hate, it has power over you. So the second you actually start to think about hatred, it falls apart a little bit. But yeah, it is fun. It's like, and you can sit there and say, you can get together with your friends and you can have whatever stochastic terrorist activities you want to do, and you come back and you think you did something. The problem is, what you're doing is you're deconstructing society. You're destroying things. Love, compassion, these things do not offer the immediate reward. They don't offer the immediate endorphin hit.
Yeah.
But
Right.
long term, they are so much more successful. One of the greatest indicators of who's going to be successful in life isn't IQ. How and where you're born is actually also one of them, by the way, of course, obviously, if you're born. Yeah. But one of the best indicators, absent all of that, just take a baby, infant baby, not an infant, 4 years old, and give them the marshmallow test. Marshmallow test is real simple. I will give you 1 marshmallow today or 2 tomorrow. Which would you prefer?
Yeah.
The ones who say 2 tomorrow statistically will in every demographic outperform their peers in every demographic. The reason is they intuit and understand delayed gratification.
See, I say I didn't become an adult until I was in my 30s. So I really can relate to what you're saying there, because being a drug addict and the things that I dealt with, it was always instant gratification, you know. And so I've had to train myself and learn to think further forward than the next day or two, you know, further forward than just what's in front of me right now, because most of my life I've very much lived day to day. You know, I don't know what's going to happen the next day and those things, but I've done it, so it's not like I'm not saying pity me. I'm saying that's just the life I've lived, and I have that experience, and it's been a learning thing to look a little further forward. And that's another thing that the atheist community, as far as like a therapeutic thing, has been for me, is helping me to assess things in a better way. I think what I think is a better way anyway. But with that, we'll start to wrap up here, and so Nick can go do the breaking news. You want to tell everybody where you're at and who you are and all that stuff real quick, for those that don't know?
My name is Nicholas $400 Soutter. There's a long story. It's the same, actually, non sequitur story that's behind this $400 suit. But at any rate, it's a long story for another time.
You got to go subscribe to find out.
Yeah, exactly. So it's youtube.com/InTimeShow or at InTimeShow Official. And we are an educational and news program. We have on a lot of guests covering a lot of topics. We talk about atheism. We talk about religion. We have on, during COVID, we had on a lot of doctors, and we would talk about just what was happening worldwide. We do try to go outside the U.S. We're centered in the U.S., but we certainly cover. Italy was brutal to cover when we were starting on COVID. And we've been covering Ukraine a lot, and we've been covering Iran a lot, but we also, of course, cover the elections. And we have a Discord. I hope you guys will join us on the Discord, where we have channels for gaming, for politics, for religion, for pick a topic. There's a channel for it, and we encourage everybody to come.
Discord's very active over there too. I mean, there's always people chatting on your Discord. I get notifications all day long for it.
Yeah, we're there. There's a lot there to just go to and come in, watch, or participate, whatever you want to do. And we're community driven. It was, a member of the community that did get the breaking news that Ukraine is now able to use U.S. arms to strike inside Russia. Which, if you've been following the situation, that is extraordinarily important. And Ukraine will lose, and reasonably soon, probably once the Trump administration takes over, if they don't get that. So we were wondering if they were going to get that before the Trump administration took over. I was starting to lose hope because it's been a minute, but it looks like they've got it as of today. So I think there's about to be a significant shift in what we're about to see in Ukraine over the next week. So we'll go live with that in a few minutes.
All right. Yeah. So everyone go over there and definitely subscribe whenever you go over to End Time and check out Nick. But go over there and watch this breaking news. Get the information. Be part of the conversation. That's how we learn and how we grow, is through discourse and having a community of people to discuss those things with. So before we get out of here, just what I've got going on this week. Thursday, Ian Chin will be here to talk a little bit about his encounters with young Earth creationism and Kent Hovind specifically. He has some amazing debates against Kent, and we're going to pick his brain a little bit about young Earth creationism. And then next Sunday, Secular Rarity will be here to sit down and have a conversation about him and what he does and his place in this community and stuff. And we'll get to know him. An awesome contributor in the atheist community. Really excited to have him on. In between then, I'll do a member stream probably Friday. If I do anything more than that, you may get it. I'm going to be recording a members only video that'll be a recorded video for you guys too. So that'll come out in the next week or so. But all that stuff going on. Be nice to each other. We have to come together, guys. That's the most important thing. We have to support each other and be kind to each other right now and get through this. Thank you, Nick, so much for your time, and thank you for what you do on your channel. Sir. It's an amazing channel, and I look forward to talking to you more and stuff. I'm sure this isn't the last time we'll do this.
I would be delighted anytime. Thank you very much for the invitation, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. All
right. Well, thanks to everybody in the chat that came and watched. We had about 45 people watching at one time today, which is pretty good for my channel. I really appreciate everyone taking the time to listen to what we have to say. And, I said something about the memberships and stuff, but really, if you want to help me out, just like and subscribe, like the video, maybe leave a comment when we go off here if you want. That would be awesome. But other than that, that's all I got today, guys. See you later. Thanks for coming by.